I just kind of have this mentality of being able to move mountains to make things happen. I truly believe it's possible, despite what people are saying. Jump on my ship and I'll take you there. Might sound a little arrogant. It's about having that vision and just conveying it to people. They believe in it, right? If you believe in it enough, so will they.
Welcome to the Masters of Business podcast with Daniel Beer.
Have a treat for you today. I'm here with a great friend and actually a man that became family. His name is Cary Subel, and he's CEO of Safe Sleeve and ShipLab. What's really interesting about this episode is on Masters of Business, we are talking to an entrepreneur who's built two different companies, both at a high degree of success in absolutely different industries. And so we are going to dive in. Cary, welcome to the podcast. This is Masters of Business. You're following some giants that have been on here. So what a great fit and a treat to have you, man. Thanks for giving us some time.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And before my partners hear this and I hear about it, CEO of Safe Sleeve, co-founder and CEO of Safe Sleeve, co-founder of ShipLab, no longer operational.
There you go. So yeah, you're acting CEO of Safe Sleeve. Take us through what that company is here in a moment. And you co-founded it, also co-founded ShipLab, but a more passive role there where you have partners who are operating that business. Let's jump in. Just give us an understanding first of all, and we dig into really what makes somebody like you tick. What our listeners want to know: how do I get the edge? How do I find an advantage? How do I think differently? How do I build something the way you have? But just for context, Cary, let's jump in. Give us a sense for Safe Sleeve and ShipLab, size of the business, what you've accomplished. Just give us a little orientation there, and we'll jump into it.
Yeah, so Safe Sleeve, we're closing in on 1 million units sold worldwide, and we've sold to something like 60 countries. Most of our sales being North America, but closing in on 1 million total units. We grow at a rate of, we've averaged close to 20% a year over the last 5-6 years. Before that, we were in kind of our exponential growth stage. And when I say 1 million units, that's really since about 2015, 2016, when we started kind of taking the business a little bit more seriously. So me and my partner co-founded the business when we were in our senior year of college, and we started bouncing the idea around. Had no idea what we were doing, but we decided, let's just figure it out. And to kind of address your question of where that drive comes from, I think you have to have a little bit of audacity, a little bit of chutzpah, as we call it, to just say that I think I can do this. And despite all the odds and what everyone's telling me, I think I can do this. I don't know what I don't know. Well, let's go find out. So by chipping away, we kind of, one thing led to another, and we just figured it out, made it happen. And when
Safe Sleeve, it protects. Share with people what it does. So it helps people protect themselves from their cell phone, from radiation. What does it do specifically?
Exactly that. So our first product was actually a laptop product that blocks the radiation, the EMF radiation that comes out of the laptop. It also helps redirect the heat away from your body. To give a little backstory on that, so when I was in high school, I got my first laptop, and my friend, whose dad was a neurologist, told me I shouldn't use the laptop on my lap. So he saw me using it. I'm all excited about it, and he's like, "Oh, it's awesome. Probably shouldn't use it on your lap." And at the time, I think I was 17 years old. I was about to go off to college. It wasn't exactly the first, concern in my brain. But as I started, went off to college, saw all my peers using their laptop on their lap. The thing's called a laptop. It's kind of how it's implied that you're supposed to use it. I just couldn't get the idea out of my brain that the radiation might be harmful, whether that's fertility, which was one of the concerns, but also things like cancer, and all sorts of other diseases that they've attributed and tested and attributed to the radiation being emitted by our electronic devices. So that's laptop, cell phone, tablet, especially anything you use in close proximity to your body. So without going on too much of a tangent, there's something called an exponential decay rate. So that EMF radiation, within a certain range, you see really high levels. And as soon as you cross a certain threshold, typically with the devices we use, it's about a foot and a half. And it just drops off a cliff. So we're really focused on that point of contact for your personal devices that you're using all day, every day. And so heard that it was bad for me. I thought there's got to be something that I could just put under my laptop and block the radiation. I go to the dentist and I use, the lead vest where they just
Right.
take a snapshot of an X-ray, and yet I'm using my laptop on my lap 8 hours a day. Turns out the radiation from the laptop, it's not as powerful as an X-ray, but it's constant. It's less powerful. It's on the same spectrum and it's constant, right? It's on or near your body. Your cell phone, it's on or near your body in the most sensitive areas, and we don't use any protection. So the first idea was actually the laptop case. I have one right here. Um, so the case,
So if you
folio.
So by the way, you might be watching or listening on Apple or on Spotify, but you can also jump over to our YouTube channel and you'll see exactly what Cary's sharing with you. So
Yeah.
let me take a
So
look.
yes, I'll do my best to describe it. So it's a laptop case. And those that can see that the laptop slides inside. When you're using the laptop, you take it out. And then this is designed, you can see how this is designed to collapse here on the side. So it collapses into a lap desk. And that lap desk is lined with our anti-radiation material that just directs the radiation away from your body. So it's the signal still allowed to enter and exit the device. Otherwise, it wouldn't work. It's just exiting and entering in a way that's redirected away from your body. So that was the first product. And by the way, for those that can see this,
So how does somebody like you though, like you don't have or at least not that I know of, you didn't go to school as an engineer.
I did.
You did?
Yeah, I
You are
did.
an engineer.
I studied engineering. I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and declared as an engineer.
Engineering school, sure.
But to be honest, I mean, the idea came even before that. I've just always been sort of that way inclined, that if there's a problem, there's got to be a solution, and let's do it as elegantly as possible. Um, so that's definitely part of it. That's just kind of how I'm inclined. And I studied engineering. I got a bachelor's in engineering.
Well, I'm going to go back to this concept of you being an engineer anyway, because right now it's just
Yeah.
interesting to understand what your product is, especially because I think it can help a lot of people. But where I'm going to want to circle back to this is a lot of engineers are not, they don't necessarily have the reputation of being dynamic leaders right out of the box. Maybe they can be too analytical or, too in the math, so to speak. You've done such a great job of building these companies, leading people. So we'll circle back to that when someone finds themselves in their analytical brain, like how does an engineer like you end up being, where did that leadership development come from? But so you went from laptop cases, but today you focus mostly on cell phones. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, the laptop case was the first product. It was almost like the Tesla model. Let's make a product that's more, more niche. It's going to be a little bit more expensive. It's not as ubiquitous. People using at the time, people using a laptop wasn't as ubiquitous. And let's start with that. It's higher price. It's kind of test the market, tweak our branding, tweak our messaging, and then eventually came the cell phone case, which just took our brand from, I said 2015. Since then, we've sold about 1 million units. It's because that's when we came out with the cell phone case. So it went from a side project to a business.
Awesome. Yeah. So let's stick there for a quick moment. So I think a lot of the entrepreneurs listening, myself included, right? When I started my business, it was, well, maybe I'll like this better than I like the previous thing, or let's see how this works out. And you get into this, we call it the messy middle, where, okay, I might have a business on my hands, but you don't have infrastructure yet. That transition of moving it from a hobby. There's a lot of people listening that might have a side hustle, that have a passion, maybe aside from their day job. But how do you make that transition to actually, like, take us to those days? Maybe we can, like, put yourself back in that mindset, whatever fears you were feeling, and what did you have to overcome in order to actually turn the dream of making this a real business in your full-time, your future, and you have this beautiful success now, you have this wonderful family and, all the great things you get to do with them on the back of what you've built. But making that transition is where a lot of people, I call, some of us call it the I don't know if I pronounce this right, Cary, the chasm, CHASM, right? Where like so many just fall in and like just can't get over to the other side. How'd you take us to that part of your journey?
So I'm going to add a little bit of context. Given that I was fresh out of college, had already started building this thing, the timing was right. Granted, I had to ignore a lot of, what I guess society might tell you, which is you get your degree, you go out, you get your job, you pay your dues. And then you see how it goes and you can work your way into your own business. I kind of saw that as ass backwards. I'm like, I have a perfect opportunity here, thankfully. And, I don't take this for granted. Not everyone has this opportunity. My parents were super supportive. I came back from college. I went straight to live at home. My expenses were very, very minimal. And they were supportive of me trying to start this new business. They knew that I had an engineering degree to fall back on. So they weren't necessarily worried about, if I need to go get a job one day. And so I want to set that context because that's super important. I'm not going to make it sound like, oh, it was super easy because I was living at home. Like I said, I'm ignoring all of the outside pressures that anyone hears at that stage in life.
I love you saying that because there's so many times I think when people will point to somebody that accomplished something in business and maybe they had certain relationships, maybe they, whatever it might be, but they had some kind of perceived advantage. And they go, oh, well, it's because of that. Mm-hmm. Well, you can give me 10,000 people that have that same scenario. A fraction of them would have accomplished what the person you're talking shit on and like lowering their accomplishments ended up being able to do. So it's interesting watching people do that, right? But I can imagine your parents. So you come back from school, you've spent a fortune on your education, and most people's parents might be like, "All right, like time to get that job. Let's go."
Yeah.
And it was so nice that they said, "All right, let's we'll be supportive in your vision." So, and that's obviously made a big impact on you.
Big time. Yeah. I mean, super helpful. I can't be more thankful. And as I've gotten older, and now I have my own kids, granted they're really young, but it's just given me a whole new perspective and appreciation for the support that they gave me. And, I think speaking of the audacity, I think it took me a few years to realize, and I completely agree with you, by the way, that you can reduce someone's accomplishments because of circumstance and context. But I completely agree that so many people have that same circumstance and don't do anything with it. And alternatively, they could have that circumstance, but they choose not to for some reason, typically based on outside pressures and logic, right? What they think they should do.
And like, what is success anyway, right? I mean, it's like someone could be born into a phenomenal circumstance, right? They could be born into $1 billion, family, whatever it might be. But if they don't grow it, like if they go from, all right, our net worth is $1 billion to I just lived my life out here on the back of my, family. This is what I was born into. And look, I'm a hot shot because I'm still worth $1 billion, 30 years later, but I didn't grow it. Bro, you failed. While somebody might be born into nothing, poverty, and they built themselves a nice little life. They built they bought their first 3-bedroom home. They make a 6-figure income. That person's massively more successful.
Yeah.
So it's relative to, I always just think I don't know what you think about this, Cary, but my belief system is my success will be determined on, we all receive a certain baseline. Some are higher, lower, in the middle, or wherever it might be from what you've given by your parents. Your job is to leave with having, your job is to provide the next generation with a higher standard than what you were given, regardless of where you started. And that's success. Like you have to be able to grow it. You have to be able to, I just think you have to have provable, demonstratable growth, or you can't say you're successful even if you live in, Beverly Hills.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think I would also say there's different strokes for different folks, right? I think some people are sort of born with that natural drive to grow, to leave the world a better place than they found it. And some people, I wish for the health, wealth, and happiness of myself and my family and those I care about, right? And if I can achieve that, whether it's, something that was passed down to me, an opportunity that was passed down to me, and I feel like I'm checking that box or those boxes, right? I'm healthy, I'm wealthy, I'm happy. And by the way, by wealth and happiness, these are subjective terms. I don't mean that you have $1 billion. Maybe it's not even $10 million, whatever you define as wealthy. I think if you can check those boxes, however you can do it, I think you're doing pretty well, right? So maybe you didn't grow your company, but maybe you knew that growing your company was at the sacrifice of your happiness, right? You had to sacrifice your work-life balance. So I agree with you. I think maybe it's a little different for certain people. For me, it's constantly evolving. It depends on my stage in life. This is a very new stage for me. I just had my second child, my son. He's not even a month old yet, and our first kid, my daughter, is just over 2 years old. So I'm really evolving in my stage of life, and my perception of what success is. And I think ultimately it's led me to realize that there's just different, whatever works for you, right? But I do agree. I don't. It's hard to argue that leaving the world a better place than you found it is not a definition of success.
So what was the pivotal moment for Safe Sleeve in finding its growth, for it to hockey stick, so to speak?
The cell phone case. So we went from the laptop case immediately into the cell phone case. Like I was saying, we launched it on Kickstarter, which for those that
I didn't know
haven't
that.
heard, those who haven't heard of Kickstarter is a way of it's kind of the original crowdfunding. So it was essentially offering pre-orders. You had a prototype for a product you couldn't quite afford to put it into production, so you went out, you presented it to the world on the internet, and you said, "Here's what we're gonna make. Fund it, pre-order it. You'll be supporting a small business. We won't have to go out and find funding and sell equity, and you'll also enable us to. You'll be one of the first users to test this product." So we put our cell phone case on Kickstarter. It did pretty well. I wouldn't say it was a viral success that, there was a lot of examples of that on Kickstarter, and we thought there was at least a small chance that would happen. But it was just enough to get that first order placed and leave some profit to reinvest into marketing and growing the business.
So
Um,
Kickstarter, I didn't know you. I'd forgotten that part of your story. So
yeah.
that allowed you to retain, at least at that point, all of your ownership.
Mhm.
And did you ever end up raising money, or were you still able, or so you never had to give up equity?
Never gave up equity.
Amazing.
Fully bootstrap. Yeah, just slowly reinvested. And that's also the beauty of e-commerce. You can, it's a cash flow positive business depending on your model.
Would you say that most entrepreneurs or what's your observation about people raising money? Do you think people jump into it a little too soon, a little fast, and give up equity they didn't have to give up?
For me, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with building something, getting something from 0 to 1, proving the concept, proving the model. And then maybe there's a point, we're not at this point just quite yet. I think we might be approaching it, but you might reach a point then where you say, we've proven that this thing works. We've proven there's a demand. We can't keep up with that demand. Maybe that's the time to go raise funds. I know it's different for certain products. There's a lot more ambitious products out there that require millions and millions in R&D before they can hit the market. Obviously, that's a different story. So it really depends on the business.
Okay. Really good. Really, really, really good. So Safe Sleeve takes off. You end up then suddenly in the distribution business, ShipLab. Uh, and I'd love for you to describe what ShipLab does, because I think it's really interesting. What's on my mind is you are faced with this opportunity. And I think a lot of people that are in business, entrepreneurs specifically, are faced with different offers, opportunities, partnerships, affiliate relationships, all kinds of different ways to add revenue streams or to tack on either ancillary business or to just expand within like their particular vertical. But some of those are some of those are honey holes. Some of those are traps. Some of those lead to just distraction. So I'm just curious as to how you go about analyzing an opportunity like that, and surely so many others that you passed up on over the years. How I think one of the key superpowers of someone who's going to have longevity in business is what framework do you use? How do you differentiate between opportunity and distraction?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I think most entrepreneurs, well, I think there's two different types of entrepreneurs. There's the type that they're so passionate about a certain idea and a certain problem that they're trying to solve, or a certain way they're trying to improve the world, that they are an entrepreneur, but they are more singular in their mission. Versus I think I'm more the type of entrepreneur, I have to check that box. I'm not going to dive into something. I'm not even going to invest in something that I'm not passionate about, don't care about, don't really understand. But I'm more of the type of entrepreneur that is looking for business opportunities, and looking for and doing that in a way that really does help people, and it checks all those boxes, and it's something I can go to sleep at night feeling like, yeah, I'm making money, I'm building a business, I'm supporting people by hiring people and hiring contractors, right? But it also has to be something that is providing some value to the world. And so I'm always looking for those opportunities. Safe Sleep was this perfect marriage where I was passionate about creating a solution to this problem. And also it's a great business that's going to, hopefully be the solution to me not wanting to go out and working an engineering job. So with that being said, I think I'm always looking for the new opportunities. I consider myself, although I've been pretty single-minded with Safe Sleep for many years now, I'm always thinking about the next thing. ShipLab was one of them. With ShipLab, it kind of came out of necessity. We were actually doing, when I say we, I was literally storing our products in my parents' garage. I spent, a couple hours a day on USPS's website, printing shipping labels, packing boxes up, trying to keep track of inventory, making runs to the postal annex. When that became half my day, 70% of my day, and then all of a sudden the garage started filling up to the point where our product didn't fit. It was like a maze just to get from one side to the other. By the way, my parents were helping me at this point, which was awesome. But it got to that point and I realized we need this isn't sustainable, right? Hopefully we keep growing on this trajectory and we've already outgrown the garage. So when I looked out in the market and, try to find some help with fulfillment, and maybe it's get my own warehouse, maybe it's, which would mean hiring a management staff, hourly labor to get that fulfillment done, learning new softwares, I realized that outsourcing to a third party was going to be best. And then when you look into outsourcing to a third party, there really aren't great options out there that, seem to care enough about your product. These are my babies. Like they slept in my garage. I cared for them. I went, I physically packed them myself. So I didn't love the idea of packing everything up and sending it to the middle of the country, and someone else doing all that. So ShipLab was born out of this need for finding that middle ground. It's still sort of in the backyard. I literally packed everything in a truck and drove it over there. Was the idea. That's what I wanted. And I would know the staff, and I wanted that experience for other founders that were in my same position. E-commerce is still booming, but at the time it was especially in that sort of hockey stick stage. So started ShipLab with my partner who was actually helping us with for the marketing for Safe Sleep. So we're all kind of, he had his own brands and also did marketing for other brands, Safe Sleep being one of them. So we're business owners and, looking for other business opportunities, also ways to help other entrepreneurs. So we started with a small warehouse location, a small staff, and we did exactly what I was doing. Keep inventory, manage inventory levels, pack orders up, ship them out to customers, and do it in the most automated, efficient way as possible. So because it was such a natural fit in terms of the timing, it benefited Safe Sleeve. I thought it was a big business opportunity at the time, which it is. It's grown like crazy over the last 8 years since we started, 6 years. So, it was a really natural progression. I think I did go into that business thinking Safe Sleeve is my full-time gig. So ShipLab, we need to find a way to hire ourselves out. I will say that that's a little bit of a cautionary tale. If you're going to start a new business and you think that you can hire out because you don't have the time, I'm not going to say it's impossible. I would just say might be a lot harder than you think, right? You're not going to find anyone that cares as much about your business as you do.
Sure.
Especially in the beginning stages. So with that specific example of ShipLab, it was just a natural progression, a natural fit. It was something that we actually needed. As far as other opportunities, I think it just, like going back to what I was saying in my criteria for a new business, I think it just has to check all those boxes for you, whatever they might be. I personally think it's universal that it needs to be something. If you want to build a sustainable business, a sustainable brand, I think you have to build something that you really believe in, and you really believe that you are helping people in some way. You're solving a problem for them. You're creating new opportunities for them. You're genuinely helping people. You're completely transparent in what you're selling, and they're buying. And that's kind of how I differentiate. As long as it checks those boxes and it's a viable business and it fits into my lifestyle, I think that's perfect.
So would you say that Safe Sleep is a brand play more than anything else? Is it at the end of the day like its future success? What is the future of it? What's the long term goal when you build a company like that, and how much does brand come into play?
I absolutely feel like it's a brand. We've built a brand. I think our success is due to the fact that we have a brand. We've been able to expand our product lineup because we have a customer base that trusts us and trusts what we put out. They, whether that's the styles, the messaging, they feel like it's more than just. I think a big part of building a brand is it's more than just a product. It's people feel like they're a part of this mission, this community. And that's, yeah, it's what's enabled us to grow, and it's hopefully going to enable us to continue growing. It's also what enables us to be very lean. There are certain companies, I think of like the energy drink companies, the sports apparel companies. If you get enough backing and you come out with a brand and you throw billions of dollars into the branding, marketing, Red Bull comes to mind. Is it the Red Bull itself, the drink, that is what makes it so successful, or is it that they've built a brand, right? They've built
No doubt about it.
probably almost a cult following, where whether people, their users, their customer base is even conscious of it or not. There's more to it than just liking that Red Bull versus the energy drink next to it on the shelf. So we're a little different in that we are very lean. We're not throwing tons and tons of marketing dollars. We're a bootstrapped company. We're reinvesting into marketing, but I think that's all the more important to build a brand, right? And we've been able to successfully do that. We have a 40% returning customer rate on average. It's a little bit hard to measure, but I think that 60% of new customers, a lot of that, big chunk of that comes from referrals. So we do all the marketing practices, but ultimately it's people want to be a part of this movement. You can go on Amazon and find something cheaper. I think we've successfully conveyed that A, it doesn't work as well,
Yeah,
and B, they want to be part of this brand.
love that. Love that. So, how many between your two companies? How many people are you leading today? How many employees are there cumulatively across the two brands that you're running?
Yes, I mean I could break it down. Safe Sleeve, which is the one I'm operational in, I'm the CEO. Very small. We have 3 employees internally.
Really?
Very lean operation.
Do you have outsourced out? I mean, there must be
Yeah,
more people contributing to it beyond those three.
there are. We outsource manufacturing. We contract out for some marketing help. We contract out for design work. Our entire customer support team of 5 people now is overseas, and they're full-time Safe Sleep, but they're not, they're technically contracted. Fulfillment, obviously. Even though I'm co-owner of ShipLab, technically Safe Sleep is effectively just a client of ShipLab. So yeah, we have a lot of help with all that. And, I would say it's slightly different than managing full-time employees of your business. But there's an art to it as well. And I would say that's a big part of what we can attribute to our success. It's just not only the contractors we choose to work with, how we find them, but also knowing when to push back, knowing when we should expect more, getting multiple bids, knowing how to evaluate someone that we want to work with, knowing when to move on from one contractor and move on to the next one. That's part of the art, that and also getting the most out of them, right? They're not technically employees, they are contractors, but we've never worked with a contractor who we've said, here you go, take it and run. I mean, we have a relationship with them that's one of our criteria is this needs to be a symbiotic relationship. We need to work together on this.
So, well, even with the outsourced labor, the contractors, you're still leading a lot of people. All the marketing people you just mentioned, the manufacturing people, whether they're reporting to you directly in a W-2 sense or not, you're still a leader of having to organize all these people. So, just real quick before we wrap up, what's made the most impact on you from a leadership development standpoint? What took you from engineer? I'm gonna just build a caricature of an engineer, like nerdy with the tape and the glasses right in the middle, Steve Urkel type.
Yeah, thanks for that.
What remember Cary when you were
Yeah,
no, he was never like that. Cary was always cool. But what turned you into a leader? What did you lean into? Who'd you learn from? What'd you study?
Yeah, it's a great question. Again, kind of necessity. I had this vision for this business for Safe Sleeve, and I knew I couldn't do it on my own, right? So let's figure out how to get the most out of people to drive that vision. And I think I'm going to give you the most cliche answer possible, but Steve Jobs is who I think of, right? As a great motivator. I mean, I remember a story from his the book, the biography that was written about him. I can't remember the name of the author, but um, and he said he went to Gorilla Glass, Steve Jobs, and he said, "Okay, so you've got this screen. We want to give you the contract, but we need 1 million units. And don't quote me on the number, but we need 1 million units." And the CEO looked him dead in the eye and said, "We can't do that. That's impossible." And Steve Jobs told him, "Yes, you can," and basically walked out of the office. And sure enough, they made it happen, right? Um, so I think it's convey. I think part of it is just innate that if you're passionate enough about your product, your vision, and you're not afraid to convey it. I'm not even going to say know how to convey it. I think everyone knows how to convey their own vision and their own passion. I think it's just about having the courage to convey it and not feel like you might sound like a crazy person. So I think if you, if you trust yourself you trust in your vision and you trust yourself to convey it, people pick up on that and they're energized by that. They're motivated by that. And essentially, I just kind of have this mentality of, being able to move mountains to make things happen. And it's just a belief that was probably ingrained in me by my parents. I told you they were very supportive, but um, I'm going to make this thing happen. I truly believe it's possible, despite what people are saying. And you're coming along for the ride. Just jump on my ship and I'll take you there. So might sound a little arrogant. Again, the Steve Jobs comparison might be a little cliche, but I really think that, and Danny, you can probably speak to this, but it's about having that vision and just conveying it to people. They believe in it, right? If you believe in it enough, so will they.
Awesome, man. Appreciate you so much. There's a lot of golden nuggets layered in there. Check it out. Check out Safe Sleeve. If you have any shipping needs, you have a product you're looking for a solution, go check out ShipLab, both led by, or at least influenced by, in the case of ShipLab, Cary Subel. This has been Masters of Business. You'll see it drop on Spotify, or you're listening on Spotify or Apple, YouTube. But also, just want to mention one thing. We have all these amazing people contribute with nothing asked in return, and we are going to continue to bring you content every single week. To eat my words, the one thing we do ask in return is just simply like, subscribe, and that shares with the algorithm that it's worthwhile. That way that more people are going to see it pop up on their screen. We can spread the message and hopefully help a lot more entrepreneurs just like you who are looking to grow their business. So we'll see you on the next episode. Cary, thank you, brother.
Thank you, Dan.